How's it going, guys? Today I'm really happy to discuss my CASIO OCEANUS, which, for those of you that are unfamiliar with this particular brand, it's a Japanese imported luxury quartz timepiece. And what makes it considered a luxury piece are, well, numerous factors, which I'll get into shortly. But briefly, it's a purely titanium case. It is hand finished with really high detail, and the movement is very advanced. It's a quartz solar powered movement that's also radio controlled and has a perpetual calendar. So let's get into it, guys. Let me first talk about the dimensions of this watch. It measures 41.5 millimeters from end to end, so from this point here to the crown. It's really closer to 40 millimeters if you're just considering the dial. The height of the watch is 10.5 millimeters, so fairly thin. Tip to tip is about 48, I believe. And then the gap for the band from lug to lug here, it's a 22 millimeter band width here. So it's a good size. It'll please a number of different wrist sizes for sure. So let's talk about the heart of the beast first, guys. And that's this quartz solar powered tough movement. So as I mentioned, it is solar powered. It never needs a battery. If you had it in complete darkness, it's supposed to have a 6-month power reserve on it. It's also the Casio Tough movement, which is the same movement reserved for their G-Shock line of watches, which just means that it's very shock resistant, anti-magnetic. This has 100 meters of water resistant. And in addition to that, again, you get the radio controlled aspect of it, and it's basically a world timer. So when this watch was actually shipped to me from Tokyo, it was Tokyo Standard Time, and I could just switch it to any time zone really quickly. And all I have to do to accomplish this is to pull out the crown, and you can kind of see right now it's set to London time, indicated by the initials at the edge of a chaptering there. And all you have to do is just slightly rotate the crown, and it will automatically switch to the right time zone. So I'm currently in New York time, so I'm just going to go to the NYC near the 10 o'clock, and you just push it back in, and then boom, now we're actually my local time, and you just set it and forget it, which is amazing. Now let's talk about just the dial and how well it's executed. It's a matte black finish. And I just love how well the indices are applied here. They're individually applied indices. They all have like this slight beveling and blue edge to them, and this blue really just plays with the light and reflects really well. In addition to this, you get a sapphire crystal, and the sapphire crystal you can see around the edge. It kind of chamfers down near the bezel, but it's also got a blue hue to it. But it's highly visible. There's an anti-reflective coating on the inside of a sapphire crystal, which just make it really, really gorgeous. I just love how it plays with the light, and it's very visible. And speaking of visibility, the loom on this is really good. I'm not sure, I think it's a proprietary type of loom that Casio uses, but it's definitely up there with other Japanese brands like your Orients, your Seikos to some extent, although Lumibright on Seiko is slightly brighter. But I mean, definitely it's potent and good in low light situations. I will throw up a loom shot so you guys can see what I'm talking about. And then let's move on to just the finishing of the case as well. And again, I mentioned this is a titanium case. It's actually a type of titanium carbide, which hardens it more than standard titanium to the point where it's actually supposed to be about a 9 on a 10-point scale for Mohs hardness. So it's actually supposed to be harder than your standard 316L stainless steel, which is pretty amazing. But the polishing on this is actually done in a way that's reserved for your really high-end pieces like your Grand Seikos. It's called Zuratsu polishing, and this is a hand method of polishing the case that gives you a mirror-like finish with like no distortion. And you can almost see along the bezel here just the way when I move it, you do get like a mirror-like reflection. It's really amazing. And these polishing accents are done along the case. It's not just the bezel. You can kind of see here near the edge, there's a bevel towards the lug here. You even have some nice polishing accents on the crown and on this added button at the 4 o'clock position. And what this does actually is once you have set your time, every night the radio signal from a radio tower, it syncs to atomic clock. And if you push this button, the second hand will either tell you it has or hasn't received a radio signal for that night. As you can see, there's a Y near the 9 o'clock for a yes. And then closer to 11 o'clock, there's an N for a no. I can tell you, after I set to my local time zone and leaving it for 24 hours, it was able to pick up a radio signal, no problem. So just amazingly accurate, amazingly durable movement you got right here. Now let's talk about the bracelet a bit, because this is really cool. Pure titanium bracelet. You can see how they did the polishing on these center links as well. So you get this really nice detailed, you got some brush and you got some polish work done. And even along the class here, you get some nice polishing accents along the push button deployment here. So you just push these two down. You get the deployment, which is really nice, all titanium. You can see that the end links here are solid. And then look at the case back itself here, guys. They actually did some nice mirror polishing along the very edges of the case back. And you can see the case back is screwed down with screws. You get your basic information, being a Japan movement. It's made of titanium, sapphire glass, water resistant to 10 bar or 100 meters. And right in the center, you get the Oceanus stamp, as well as some other information. And while we're on the topic of the bracelet too, let me just move, and you can see how the bracelet just has the arrows for the push links here. So this is supposed to be your standard push link bracelet, although I will caution you, I did have this size for my wrist. I tried to do it myself, but it's not just your simple pins that are in here. In the center link here, there's also an extra tube that comes out with the pin. So when you push these out, just be mindful that there's an extra small tube that goes in the center, and it's just held in there by friction. But if you just try and push a normal pin in, it'll probably just slide right through without that center tube in place. So just a word of caution there. But other than that, the bracelet's really, really nice, and it completely complements the actual case. The only other comment, and I've heard other people comment about this, is that it is kind of a proprietary sorry, bracelet, because this center link here is actually part of the case. So even though even though you even have screwed lug holes here, so it's pretty easy to switch out the bracelet, it would be really difficult to find a replacement bracelet. All that being said, I don't see a reason why you would want to change it out, because this bracelet just matches the case so well, and it just adds to the lightweight and durability of this piece. So overall, guys, a really, really fantastic quartz piece. If you had to choose just one quartz piece to have in your collection, I mean, this is a strong contender. I will throw it on my wrist right now so you guys can see how it wears on my 7¼ inch wrist. And there's a wrist shot for you guys. And you can see it just sits really well on your wrist. And with it being titanium, it's super light. Again, I think I mentioned it's about 90 grams total, including the bracelet. And you forget you're wearing this piece. So with wrist presence, it'll please a lot of different wrist sizes. It's a bit of a double-edged sword sometimes too, though, because sometimes I miss the feel of that cold, heavy stainless steel on my wrist, having a bigger wrist. But I mean, it's really not much of a drawback, because with this titanium, what you're really getting is something that's more lightweight than stainless steel, more corrosion resistant, and supposedly also it's supposed to be more scratch resistant, the way they hardened it with this specific formulation of a titanium carbide. But all in all, guys, just a fantastic piece. And again, if you get a chance to pick one up, I highly recommend it. You don't see too many in North America, but you can get these online and shipped from Japan. But I just wanted to give you my initial impressions of this watch. And please let me know what you guys think in the comments below.